Hinamata, you are able to hear now?
Yeah, now I'm
Yeah,
able.
Prabhuji, we can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. So if you see the knowledge of Bhagavad, how Krishna gave the message of Bhagavad Gita, he actually, no, he gave Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. So first six chapters he spoke about karma, jnana, and then Ashtanga yoga, and then from starting from seventh chapter, he started giving pure knowledge of bhakti, means the devotion service. Um, and last six chapters he will give pure jnana. Jnana means knowledge. So if you see how like chapter 2 and 6, 2 to 6, Krishna says the knowledge of matter and spirit. That is called confidential knowledge. And chapter 7 and 8, this knowledge they give of knowledge of bhakti, and they are called more confidential subject matters. And chapter 9 and chapter 9 deals with Kevala Bhakti, pure devotion, and it is called most confidential knowledge. So it is said that no, it is said that Krishna gives anything one may ask. Krishna gives Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He can give wealth. Uh, he can give swarga. He can give even liberation, moksha. He can give easily. But when it comes to bhakti, he holds it back. He holds it back. Unless you only want bhakti, then Krishna gives. Like unless no, then Krishna gives for them that this bhakti, because bhakti is very confidential. It brings one very closer to Krishna. Means Krishna is the supreme controller. No, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna is the master of all that is created, both the spiritual and material worlds. And but why? And he can give anything. If you ask material, anything material, or anything spiritual, or anything even up to liberation, he can give easily. But when it comes to bhakti, he doesn't give so much that very easily. So that's why bhakti is the bhakti knowledge of bhakti is called the most confidential knowledge, because a devotee will get the ability to control even Krishna himself. Hmm? So if you see the pastimes where like Mother Yashoda, who is a devotee of Krishna. So if you see the relatives of Krishna, like Nanda Maharaj, Yashoda Mai, or even Radharani is also a devotee. mm. So they have, due to their uh, bhakti, due to their loving devotional service to Krishna, they were able to control Krishna. Like Mother Yashoda used to bind Krishna, like in Damodar Lila, she binds Krishna to the grinding motor. And Krishna used to carry the shoes of Nanda Maharaj on his head. Mm. And Krishna used to sometimes touch the feet of Radharani. So such is the control that a devotee gets on Krishna. Means Krishna is Bhaktavasala. He is so favorable to the devotees. And all the great demigods like Indra, Brahma, Shiva, and all great demigods, they are aspiring to just see, have a darshan of Krishna. There are very various pastimes how these devotees like Brahma and all, they are very, they actually in Srimad, if you see in Srimad Bhagavatam, they were very surprised how this Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, is crying on the lap of Mother Yashoda, and he is hankering for their love, and he is dancing as per their he to satisfy them like that. So that is the power of bhakti. So that's why this bhakti is very most conventional, because when it is like yeah, if we take anybody to our, if some stranger comes to our home, so if that stranger, like if he is not well known to us, he will be confined only to the living room, where there will be a chair. He will sit there and we'll serve him some things, and then talk to him and then ask him to go off. And if some closer relative, so closer friend comes, closer relative or somebody comes, then we will take him up to know, okay, you can come up to our kitchen, you can come up to our bedrooms or something like that. But somebody who is very closer, like like dearmost, then he has full access to all our things. He can even even goes and opens all the closets and even the safes and everything. So why? Because we have full trust in him, and we you give full access to we give full access to that person. Even our private things also, he can open and see, and he can discuss with us. That because we know that he is our dearmost friend. That's how when Krishna, when it comes to giving himself his devotee, Krishna, we discussed, right, as Krishna has three features: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Mm. So the devotees, no, the sages who are not devotees of Krishna, they can only get impersonal liberation, moksha. Mm. Only they can merge into the impersonal Brahman. It is like outskirts of the home, means like they can only go to the near the palace of the Krishna, like they can stay outside the palace of Krishna. And little bit closer, Paramatma realized they can able to have the darshan of Krishna, they can be able to see the Krishna. And more closer, they will have Bhagavan darshan, they will have full realization, they can be able to touch Krishna, they can be able to serve Krishna, they can be able to constantly associate with Krishna. So that is what bhakti deals with, personal dealings with Krishna. Mm. That's why it is called most conventional knowledge. It describes how one can easily attain Krishna, and it describes how one can easily transcend this material existence and go back to spiritual world also. So in this chapter, it is this chapter is very deep when compared to what all we discussed previously. Means Krishna gives a more in-depth knowledge about the process of devotional service. In the first three verses, Krishna glorifies uh, what qualifications of understanding. Krishna glorifies this knowledge. No, the word says, "Idam tu te guhyatamam pravakshyami anusuyave jnana vijnana sahitam yajnatva moksha se ashubha moksha se ashubhat." So Krishna is saying only envious, non-envious people. mm, Like this is the most conventional knowledge, and this conventional knowledge is only meant for very selected few. Means who are non-envious, because first principle why there is we are separated from Krishna, because of our envy towards Krishna. Because when we are in the spiritual world along with Krishna, we want to enjoy independent of Krishna. We are envious why everybody worships Krishna only. Why don't they worship me? Why always they give importance to Krishna only? Why can't they recognize me, my greatness, like that? So we are trying to compete with Krishna, even though we don't have much qualifications. We try to lord it over, and we try to prove ourselves that we are also great. Not only Krishna, that we are also great. Like that, we try to show off ourselves. That's why even it is not possible for the living entity to be on the equal level of Krishna. But in order to facilitate them, in order to facilitate the jivas to get rid of their impurities, Krishna has sent us into this material world. So where we can create, where we can maintain, and where we have the ability to destroy. Mm. Here in this material world, we are like lords, right? Landlord. mm, Like everybody is a controller in this world. Father thinks he is controlling the family. Mother thinks she is controlling the family, and children thinks they are controlling the father and mother. And boss thinks I'm controlling everybody in the office. An employee thinks boss is dependent on me, so I'm controlling the boss. So like that, everybody thinks I am the center of the universe. I am the controller. I am the enjoyer. That mentality is predominant in this metal world. So we were sent, like, when we have this attitude, when we want to be the controller, when we are not willing to accept the subordinate position towards Krishna, uh, we we are indirectly expressing our envy towards Krishna. Mm. So Krishna is saying only devotees. This chapter is meant only for the devotees. Uh, So because Krishna is saying to Arjuna, because you are non-envious of me, I shall speak this most confidential knowledge of pure bhakti. Mm. So this that culminates direct relation of me, knowing which you shall be relieved of all miseries. Mm. So what is the qualification for one to become a devotee? First qualification is you should be non-envious. Non-envious means not only envious of Krishna but also he should be non-envious of anybody in this creation, because it is only Krishna's potency that is being expressed in many features. If somebody is beautiful, means it is not their beauty, it is Krishna's beauty that is coming through little bit from them. If somebody is more knowledgeable, Krishna gave them the ability to be more knowledgeable. And if somebody is more rich or more opulent, Krishna has given his opulences little bit to them, because if somebody does pious work in their previous life or this life, when Krishna is pleased with them, he will reciprocate them, giving them his opulences. What are the six opulences of Krishna? He is the most beautiful, he is the most opulent person, he is the most famous person, he is the most knowledgeable person, he has the amazing physical strength. So, and he is fully renunciate. These are the six main opulences of Krishna. So if we see these any of these qualities in anybody, and if we are becoming envious in any manner towards them, means we are indirectly expressing our envy towards Krishna. So that's why this subject matter of Bhagavad Gita is meant for non-envious people. Either they are directly expressing or indirectly expressing their envy towards Krishna. So when we are non-envious, our mind will be very peaceful and will be receptive to the spiritual knowledge. Okay. And then this process of pure bhakti and the knowledge of pure bhakti are transcendental. Just like a pure bhakti is beyond the material modes, knowledge of pure bhakti is also beyond the modes. Knowledge that is described earlier is mode of goodness. Okay, this is this knowledge of pure bhakti is beyond the modes of material nature. Okay. So next Krishna says in the next verse, it, in the first three verses he is glorifying this knowledge which he is about to give. Okay, he says Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram idamuttamam Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartum Avyayam. So Krishna is saying this knowledge is the king of all education, Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam, and is the most conventional and secret of all, and Pavitram, purest knowledge. Okay, knowing this knowledge, one can become pure, Uttamam, and it is transcendental, mm, and gives direct experience of self-realization. Pratyaksham, Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam. Okay, it gives direct experience of perfection of religion. And and this process of pure bhakti is susukam kartum avaya, means it is very joyful to perform and very easy and joyfully performed. And avyaya means everlasting, means whatever we do in bhakti, if we chant one name of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, that is eternal benefit. Means if we just do little bit of progress in our devotional, in our spiritual life, in the process of bhakti, it is everlasting. It means it will give everlasting benefits to us. Means if you perform little bit of service in this life, and that service will never expire. Unlike, if somebody does pious karma, if you give $100 to somebody, hmm, and in the maybe this life or next life, as per the law of karma, you will get $100 back as a donation to some by some means. Mm. So that is like 1 is equal to 1. If you give 100, you will get 100. Mm. But in the case of bhakti, if you give $1 or $100, and it is eternally, your bank account will show $100 balance only. Your bank account will not go beyond below $100. Means just only positive, increasing only, not no declining. So if you make progress on bhakti, like such that you earn some devotional credits, those credits are never going to get vanquished or diminished. Mm. It will save us in all circumstances, in all the lives. That is the potency of bhakti. It is everlasting. Okay, and it is susukam. It is very joyful. Just chanting Hare Krishna, chanting, dancing, and discussing the glories of Krishna Katha, and then sweet pastimes of Krishna. How Krishna has performed various pastimes in Vrindavan, in Mathura, in Dwaraka, mm, and like that. It is very very sweet and joyfully performed. It is not just like Ashtanga yogis. They don't eat. They don't wear any clothes. So they perform severe austerities. It is very tough process. Unlike that process, the process of bhakti is very joyful. We don't see any devotees performing so severe austerities. They are simply situated, and they are always in devotion to Krishna. Uh, they eat Krishna prasad, and they live joyfully in the process of devotion. So in the third verse says, these three verses are the introduction to this knowledge. Okay, what does Krishna say in third verse? Ashtatadana Purusha. He says in third word, Ashratadana Purusha dharma syasya parantapa aprapyamam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. Those who are not faithful in this process of devotional service, O Arjuna, cannot attain me. They remain in the path of repeated birth and death in this material world. So only thing that is required for bhakti is the faith. Just like unless we have faith, we keep on questioning everything. We keep on uh, repeatedly uh, uh, we will not develop firm conviction on anything. Okay, that is the drawback of the person who doesn't have faith in the process, in any process. He cannot make substantial progress in any process. Like see, the faith is integral part of our life. If you take a bus, if you get into a bus, it means that we are putting faith on the driver. Hmm? If you're no, if you got any disease and you went into a operation theater, means you are putting faith in the doctor. So faith, we have to keep faith on something or the other. Mm. So in the same way, when we take up the process of devotional service, we have to put full faith on Krishna, that Krishna is our protector, Krishna is our maintainer. Uh, Krishna will will protect us in any circumstances. That kind of faith one should develop. That is the best way of progressing in the devotional service. When we put faith, then we take up the process with full conviction. So then verse number 4 to 10, Krishna explains about this Aishwarya. Means Krishna is saying how everything is dependent on him in the fourth verse. Okay. Krishna says, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtinam matstani sarva bhutani nachahyam tesh avastita. Krishna is saying everything is dependent on me, and I am not dependent on them. Means like every living being, either everything, either both the material or spiritual worlds, is everything is dependent on Krishna for them, for their existence. But Krishna is not dependent on them. Unlike so like uh, in the Puranas there are many stories like uh, like some Rakshasas like Hiranyakashipu or Ravanasur, they want to find Krishna, they want to find Vishnu, and what they see, they don't find them anywhere because Krishna is not visible for the atheistic persons. So what they do, okay, Krishna is depending on the austerities performed by the sages, so we just harass the sages. So they started killing or harassing the sages. So means Krishna is saying, I'm not dependent on anybody, but everybody is dependent on him. Even the Rakshasas and even the animals, even atheists, they are also dependent on Krishna for their survival. So, and Krishna is saying, I pervaded this entire universe, okay, and this in the entire universe, in everything, in in an unmanifested state. We saw, right, how as a Brahman, like just like a sun god is like Bhagavan, and sun planet is like Paramatma, and sunshine is like Brahman. mm, and it is all pervasive, like just like sunshine is spread throughout the universe. In the same way, the Krishna is spread throughout the universe through his energies. Okay, yet Krishna is not in everything. Even though Krishna is everywhere there, but is yet Krishna is not in everything. Mm. Krishna says, "Behold my mystic opulence, Yoga Maheshwaram. Everything that is created doesn't rest in me. Although I maintain everything, I am not a part of this creation. For myself is very source of creation." So here it is saying Krishna is the source of everything, but Krishna, not everything rests in Krishna, because this material world, for example, this material world is created such that we cannot see Krishna directly. Hmm? But we see the nice arrangement, and like before we take birth, this there is a nice arrangement, and even after we pass away from this world also, this arrangement will be like that only. So there might be somebody who actually created this world so nicely, right temperature, water, rivers, trees, and everything. Hmm? How? Because it is Krishna who has arranged it for us, for the uh, living entities who wants to enjoy independent of Krishna. So in order to facilitate them, Krishna has arranged in this material world. Okay, and then Krishna gives an example: as a wind blows everywhere and rests always in the sky, and all created beings rest in me. Okay, in the same way, Krishna's energies are everywhere, but everything depends on Krishna, but Krishna doesn't depend on them. Okay, at the time of destruction, Brahma's life, all the beings enter into my energy. Hmm? Like what this creation takes place and gets destroyed in a periodic manner. At the time of creation, at the time of destruction, at the end of the Brahma's life, all the beings enter into my energy, means Krishna's energy. So under Krishna's will, under this his energies, the whole cosmic order of manifestation is created again and again. So this entire universe, hmm, this entire universe in a periodic manner meets destruction and again created again and again. So, but we know, right? Like if anybody does anything in this material world, no, they will be bound by karma. If you do something good, you will be bound by your good activity. If you do anything bad, you will be bound by your bad activity. So it is. But Krishna says neither of the work doesn't bind me. Okay, because Krishna is the supreme director. Krishna says, by my direction, by my glance, this material nature is producing all the moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this universe is under its rule. This universe is created and annihilated again and again. So this is the position of Krishna. So what is the relation between this material world and Krishna? This material world and spiritual world, entire things dependent on Krishna for their existence, but Krishna doesn't depend on any of this for their existence. So for us to exist, should have a nice temperature. We should have no diseases, no natural calamities. We depend on many factors. Our existence depend on many factors, right? We should have a nice economy, nice rains, so that we will have food to eat. So there are many ifs and buts for our existence. But for Krishna, nothing can affect him. Such is the power of Krishna. So, but in a periodic manner, Krishna comes to this material world out of compassion for the living entities, to educate them, to tell them who they really are. They are actually misidentifying themselves and thinking that they are this material body. I took birth in this family, or I took this birth in this nation. So I'm so and so. I'm Indian. I'm an American. I'm a husband. I'm a wife. Like that, that kind of misconceptions they will have, and then due to that they will not be able to realize themselves truly. Hmm. So different then Krishna describes about, so he is talking about pure bhakti here, right? Now Krishna is talking about different types of worshippers of Krishna. Okay, like fools or impersonalists consider Krishna as an ordinary human being. Okay, now that's Krishna says that no, అవజానంతి మామూఢ మానుషం తనుమాశ్రితం పరం బ్రహ్మ అజానంతో మమ భూత మహేశ్వరం. So fools deride Krishna when Krishna descends in the human form, because Krishna is saying he is the proprietor, he is the maintainer of everything. But in order to rescue the, in order to bring back this conditioned soul, or to educate them, Krishna will come, because if prime minister or president or a king doesn't have to come into a prison houses. If a king comes into a prison house to for any inspection or for educating the prisoners or anything like that, and if the prisoners think, oh, king is also in the prison right now, he is also one among us, that is foolishness. So when Krishna comes into this material world, it doesn't mean that Krishna is one among us. Krishna is, he's in his own position, but with respect to his devotees, Krishna Krishna behaves in such a way that he is one among his devotees. He plays with his Gopa friends, and he as a child to his parents, as a lover to his beloveds, like that, hmm, as a brother to his brothers, like that. So Krishna reciprocates accordingly. But only the great saintly persons can actually realize and worship Krishna's in his original position. But fools, like there are many demonic persons, like Duryodhan or something like that. uh, they actually derided Krishna. They think that Krishna is some kind of magician. So they didn't accept the original position of Krishna. So when Krishna gives this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, some people will say, oh, this Bhagavad Gita is kind of, there are many books like Bhagavad Gita, and they don't take the message of Bhagavad Gita seriously. Krishna is saying so easily, so practically, how to attain the perfection of life, uh, and how to transcend this from this material world. Just by following the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, one can easily perfect their life. You don't have to go into the forest. You don't have to give up anything. So you just follow the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, and at the end of life, you will be going back to Godhead, and you will be able to nicely manage this while in this material world also. So that is, but this foolish people who consider Krishna as, then Krishna explains what is the mentality of foolish people. Okay, mogasha moga karmano moga gnana vichestasa rakshasam asuram chaiva prakriti mohini sthira. Means this atheistic people baffled in their hopes for attaining the Lord's abode, mm, and baffled in their fruitive activities, as a result of attaining heavenly Swarga, and do not attain the results of culturing of knowledge, which is liberation. Means they cannot go back to Godhead. The persons who are foolish, such kind of people, they cannot go back to Godhead, and they cannot not even go to Swargaloka, and their attempts, who the Krishna is talking about the persons who are atheistic and who doesn't believe in Krishna. They do not attain the results of cultivating knowledge, such as, which is like liberation. They are deluded by Maya. Means due to illusion, they are thinking that they are enjoying, but they are suffering only without devotion to Krishna. And such kind of person, they are attracted to demoniac and atheistic views, having taken shelter of illusory material energy. So that is a position of the atheistic persons. Okay, and but the persons who believe or who actually takes Krishna with great devotion and with great belief, Krishna says that Mahatma Mahatmanamstu. So verse number 13 and 14. mm, Krishna says Mahatmanastu mam partha daivim prakritimāshrita bhajantyanya manaso gnatva bhutadhimavyayam. So Krishna is saying, yeah, and one more quality of devotees are Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantascha Dudavrata Samantavyascha Mam Bhaktya Nitya Yukta Upasate. So, in the last two verses, Krishna spoke about atheistic demoniac people. They don't believe in Krishna, they take Krishna cheaply and they make fun of Krishna. That kind of person Krishna spoke. And now Krishna speaks about the devotees who actually take advantage of Krishna's instruction. What are their characteristics? Those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under my protection of my divine spiritual nature, not under the control of material nature. So that Krishna is saying devotees are under my control, not under the control of laws of nature or material nature. Hmm? And they do my devotional service without distraction. And knowing me, my human as in the form of Krishna, as the cause of everything and inexhaustible and being fully spiritual. Hmm? So they know the actual position of Krishna and with full conviction, without deviation, they engage in the devotional service of Krishna. Hmm? What that kind of persons do? Always chanting the glories of Krishna, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me with great devotion. These great souls perpetually worship me. That's what devotees do. They actually, with full conviction, they actually worship Krishna. Hmm? Now, Krishna explained more about the pure devotees. Okay, from then verse number 15 onwards, these are the qualities. Okay, three kinds of gnanis worship Krishna by cultivating knowledge. What are these three kinds of gnanis? Ekatvena. Ekatvena means they worship Krishna in oneness, mm, thinking themselves as God. Means like I'm godly in nature. Means I belong to Krishna. Like my position is I'm a soul, I'm a part and parcel of I'm a Atma, I'm a soul, and I'm a part of super soul. Hmm? I'm I'm a part and parcel of Paramatma. That is Ekatvena. Prithakvena means they worship me in diversity in many forms as demigods. Hmm? Sometimes like no devotees also worship other demigods. Means they worship demigods thinking that they are representatives of Krishna. They don't worship demigods as the supreme. They are like they don't find any god and they worship them as the supreme god. They respect demigods as a part and parcel of Krishna. Ekatvena means they worship Krishna as the and Prithakvena and Vishwatomukam. They worship me as the universal form. Hmm? Ekatvena, Prithakvena, Vishwatomukam. These three ways one can worship Krishna. Means they can single-handedly, like single-pointedly worship Krishna, Ekatvena, being thinking him as a part and parcel of Krishna, and Prithakvena, they may worship in diversity, means they can see Krishna's energies everywhere and be Krishna conscious everywhere. And Vishwadamukam means like he can worship entire universe as Krishna in his universal form. So now, like Krishna previously already explained how how the devotees worship him as in his personal form. Now Krishna will explain about his universal form. What is the advantage of knowing this universal form of Krishna? Because then we can be always see, we can see the presence of Krishna in everywhere and everything that we come across. That's how we can be always Krishna conscious. We will be remembering Krishna, and we will be always Krishna conscious. So it is in the verse number 16. Lord Krishna says, essence of everything is in essence of everything in the material world. Okay, 19 to 16. Okay, like Krishna says, I am the father of all universe, and I am the mother. Huh? Krishna says, I am the father, I am the mother, maintainer, and great grand share. I am the object of knowledge, purifier, Om syllable Om. I am Rigveda, Samveda, and Yajurveda. I am the goal, sustainer, and master of witness. So basically, Krishna is saying his energy is present everywhere. He give heat and cause rain. I withhold and send rains. I am immortality, liberation. I am also death. I am both spirit and matter, gross and subtle. So that's what Krishna is saying. Because Krishna is saying he is all pervading and ultimate shelter and cause of all causes. So if you read the translation, you can clearly know, and you can read purport also for better understanding. Now Krishna speaks little bit about demigod worship. So demigod worship, due to demigod worship, what happens? He says, uh, attaining they may attain the heavenly planets. They may attaining heaven by piety. Means like when somebody does pious work, that the utmost the maximum benefit that they can attain is they may go to the heavenly planets. Okay, so those who worship demigods, no, they actually worshiping Krishna indirectly. Ultimately, whatever one worships, that he will attain. Okay, like if one worships Surya Dev, he will go to Surya's abode. If one worships no any other demigod like Indra, anybody, he will go to his abode. If worships Lord Shiva, he will go to Lord Shiva's abode. If worships Lord Brahma, he will go to Lord Brahma. So Krishna is saying any loka abrahma bhuvana loka punaravritno arjuna, means in any planet one may go, but one again have to still come back again into this material world, because there is death everywhere except in the Krishna loka. So so coming back to earth, by enjoying heavenly senses for pleasures and results of their pious acts. So when the results of their pious acts gets exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Kshina punya martelokam vishanti. Thus, the pleasure seekers who follow the Vedic rites achieve only repeated birth and death. Okay, that kind of people will achieve repeated birth and death. Krishna's complete protection for Ananya Bhakta means, next he speaks about the how he protects his devotees. Okay, so demigods, they cannot, they themselves need the protection of Krishna, because for them to go back to Krishna, they need to take the shelter of Krishna. So if we take demigod, if you worship demigods and if you become pure devotee of demigod, then utmost thing that they can offer is they will they will bring back to their loka, they will bring back to their nature, and still their world, they are not the worlds of demigods are not permanent. They have to fall down again. Mm. So instead of worshipping demigods, now we respect demigods, but at the same time, when we worship Krishna, then Krishna says that kind of persons will go to his abode. So Krishna says, but those who always thinks of me with exclusive devotion, meditating on me, desiring my association, to them I supply everything what they lack, and I preserve what they have. So this word says is Ananya Chintayanto Ma Yejana Paryupashyate Tesham Nityabhiyuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. Means Krishna is saying, I take care of all the necessities of my devotees, and at the end, he will be coming back to me, and will be eternally. Means Krishna says, whoever goes back to the Krishna Loka or to Vaikunta, they will never fall down again in this material world. So he says the demigod worship is he's worship only, but in a wrong way. Avidhi purvakam. Mm. The right way of growing a plant is by watering its roots, not by watering the leaves or branches. Now, if you want to water a plant, you just have to throw water on the roots, right? If we water any leaves or any twigs, it is not going to nourish the plant. So, in the same way, similarly, the right way of worshipping the Supreme Lord is to serve Him directly and not the demigods, who are His representatives in managing affairs of the world in Lord's government. It is illegal to bribe the government representatives without following the rules and regulations of the government. So, worshipping demigods is a wrong way of worshipping Krishna, and thus that kind of person they return to take birth in this material world again. So, if we are not worshipping Krishna out of maybe ignorance or out of desiring some fruitful results, it means that we want to enjoy independent of Krishna. We don't surrender to Krishna anymore. So that kind of people, they'll have to take birth again and again in this material world. So all acts, like one should perform all the acts for satisfying Krishna. Aham hi sarva. So it says in the verse number 24. Aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha natuma natumama bi natumama bijananti tatvena tansh tatvena tatshavanti te. Means I am the only enjoyer and the master of all sacrifices, and also the giver of results through the demigods. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature will fall down. Means he will not attain the ultimate benefit. Okay, the whoever worship the demigods. So Krishna says, then what is the destiny of demigods? Yanti devan vrata devan pitrin yanti pitrin vratan bhutayanti bhutani yanti bhuteja yati mad yajino mam. Those who worship demigods go to demigods planet. Those who worship ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts will take birth among the ghosts. Those who worship me will come to me with there. When they come to Krishna, then there is no chance of going back to this material world again. So then the verses from 29 to 34, Krishna gives about the essence. What is the glories of Krishna Bhakti? So verse number 26 says, it is very easy to worship Krishna. Like like Krishna is saying, worship me, don't have to worship any demigods, something like that. But somebody may say, oh, is it difficult to worship Krishna? Then Krishna says, okay, it's so easy to worship, so easy to please Krishna, because he's our original father, he's our original mother. So like for somebody who, like if you want to ask anything from anybody, you have to please them in many ways. Like to please a boss, you have to work in a mean for we have to work overtime, or we have to work like an ass, like that. But if you want to ask anything from your mother or father, you'll easily approach, daddy, can you give that to me? That's it. And he has a relationship with you, and he will just give it away, and he will just easily give it off. So when we approach Krishna, patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayashyati tadaham bhaktya upahrityam a- asana asnami masnami prayatatmanaha. So Krishna is saying, if An unmotivated devotee offers me with love and devotion a leaf, flower, or a fruit, or water. mm, I accept that loving of offering with from the devotee. mm. So, like when a person offers, like any person can offer these, right? Patram pushpam phalam toyam means a leaf, means like a tulsi leaf or anything like that. A leaf, a flower, a fruit, or even like if nothing is available, just some water that can be offered with love to Krishna. And, and Krishna says, if one offers those with love and devotion, I accept them. If Krishna accepts anything from us, means he is going to reciprocate us in, in his proportionately, because like that's why we have to give the best thing we got to Krishna. Means like we have to, so that Krishna will give the best thing. Okay, so it doesn't mean that I have thousands and crores of rupees, but I only offer one flower or one patran, one pushpa. uh, so like we should, like if we love somebody, we'll give the best thing that we got, right? But Krishna is saying, if you don't have anything, then you just give whatever you have. No, offer with love and devotion, then Krishna will accept it. So we have to, you know, if we love somebody, we have to express love by offering anything like that. And Krishna says he accepts those offering and reciprocate accordingly. And one should do everything as an offering to Krishna. Yad karoshi yadashnasi yad juhosi dadasi yatta yatta pasyasi kaunteya tat krushu tat krushu madarpanam. So Krishna is saying, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer on in sacrifice or give away as a charity, whatever austerity you perform, O son of Kunti, do that as an offering to me. Means we can do everything. No, we have to do everything for the as a offering to Krishna. Like even working in the office, or cooking and offering to Krishna, or raising kids, or no, leading a family, or no, uh, maintaining a family in the society, being a member of anything that we have to do as a service to Krishna. That way, we will be we will be purely situated, rightly situated, and attain the everlasting benefits. So, what are the results of when the results of offering everything to Krishna? Then what is the outcome when we offer everything to Krishna? That is said in verse number 28. He says, "You will be free from all bondages of karma." Means we previously described, right? If you do akarma, if you do karma, you get positive results. If you do no, if you do bad karma, like if you do good thing, we get good results. If we do bad thing, we get bad results. But when you perform service to Krishna, when we do everything as an offering to Krishna, then that result doesn't bind us to this material world, and we'll be easily able to go back to Krishna. Hmm? So that guidance that we have to take from the Guru, how to perform our activities in Krishna conscious as a service to Krishna, so that it will be able to please Krishna, and at the end of and will be detached from this material world while we are living in this material world, and at the end of our life we will be going back to Krishna Loka. Now Krishna says, one may think, no, okay, then how can I approach Krishna, because I'm not a devotee, no, something like that, no. But Krishna says, समोहम सर्वभूतेषु न मे द्वेषोऽस्ति न प्रिय ये भजन्ति ते ये भजन्ति ताम भक्त्या मयि ते तेषु चाप्यहम्. So Krishna says, I am equally disposed to all living beings. I envy no one, nor I am partial to anyone. But whoever rendered service unto me in devotion is friend of me, and I am also a friend of him. Means he, Krishna, gives equal opportunity to everybody to become a devotee. Whoever takes up a devotion service, he will become a friend of Krishna, and Krishna will become a friend of the devotee. So it is up to us to take advantage or not. So everybody, Krishna gives $100 to everybody. Using that $100, you can buy a ticket to go back to home, or you can do some sense gratification here. So in the same way, Krishna is giving equal opportunity to everybody. He's like that's what he's saying. So if we become his devotee, then he will be friend of us, and he will take us back. Okay. And Krishna is saying like whatever we have, he will protect us, and whatever we lack, he will supply. Okay. Krishna not only giving these words to a pure exalted devotee, he is saying even the devotees who are not very advanced. Okay. Who are the devotees who are certainly not who are devotees are certainly saintly, but the devotees who are not so advanced also, like even if sometimes devotees commit some mistakes, no, uh, Krishna says that Krishna excuses and purifies the imperfect devotee. Okay. Krishna is अवचेत सु अभिचेत स दुराचारो भजते माम अनन्य भाग साधुरेव समन्तव्य सम्यक व्यवस्थितो हि सा. Means Krishna is saying क्षिप्तं भवति धर्मात्मा शाश्वत 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 शांतिं निगच्छति कौन्तेय प्रतिजानी ही नमे भक्त्या प्रणश्यति. Krishna is saying, even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service to please me, I consider him most saintly, and he is properly fixed in his determination on me. He quickly becomes righteous, devoid of all contamination, and attains lasting peace, O son of Kunti. So Krishna is saying, if somebody takes up devotional service, and but he is not able to perform it rightly, no, it is not able to, he is doing a lot of mistakes. But Krishna is saying, even if he makes any number of mistakes, I consider him saintly because he is rightly situated. As long as his determination is right, because as long as he is connected to Krishna, he is rightly situated. Krishna is saying that kind of person will gradually get purified and become and attains the lasting peace. Means he'll go back to Godhead. And after saying this, Krishna says to Arjuna, you Krishna Arjuna, you boldly declare, no, Name Bhakta Pranashyati, means my devotee never perishes. Means Krishna is saying to Arjuna, you boldly declare to everybody that the devotee of Krishna will never perish. Means Krishna is saying, why Krishna is asking Arjuna to declare, because if Krishna declares, there is a chance that he will fulfill or he will not fulfill, because sometimes but when a devotee of Krishna declares something, Krishna will definitely will protect that word. So a devotee of Krishna will never perish. So if you take up devotion service, there is only going forward, there is no failing in devotional service. Okay. So then what is the conclusion? Is people people in sinful birth can also attain Krishna. By Krishna says, those who take shelter of me, though they may be of lower birth, uh, everything, even though they are of lower birth, everyone can attain the supreme destination. Like in the olden days, they they don't have right education for lower class people, or sometimes ladies or workers. So any kind of persons who take shelter of them. Now we see in Krishna's devotees. Like if you see, there are Muslims who became Krishna's devotee, and there are devotees like Mirabai. There are devotees, who are not from a well-to-do family. They become so dear to Krishna, and they become a so much advanced in devotional service, just by taking shelter of Krishna. Then how much more of those pious brahmanas, the devotees and saintly kings, therefore having come to this temporary miserable, engage in loving service to me. Okay. So even a sinful person can achieve perfection. Then what to speak of the saintly devotees, who are always engaged in devotional service of Krishna in in a favorable manner, they will definitely will attain the perfection. So after saying all these things, Krishna says the last verse, no, what is the conclusion of this entire chapter and what is the best thing that we have to do, no, that Krishna says, okay. Krishna asked Arjuna to just worship Krishna in a direct manner, in a pure devotional service, no. Manmanabhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam evaishyasi yukta mam evaishyasi yuktaivam atmanam matparayana. Hmm? Krishna says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer my obeisance to me. You will surely come to me having absorbed yourself completely in taking shelter of uh, having ta- uh, having observed yourself completely in me and taking my shelter. That's what Krishna is saying. Just by always thinking of Krishna and becoming a devotee of Krishna, worshipping Krishna and offering obeisances to Krishna. See, that's such a simple process. So when we perform this devotion service, performing this bhakti towards Krishna, it's a very easy way that we can achieve perfection of our life. We can actually, mm, while staying in this material world, we become unattached to the results of our whatever comes, good or bad, in this material world. We don't suffer that much in this material world. And also at the end of life, when we are fully Krishna conscious, we'll attain the ultimate perfection of life. So that is the essence of being a devotee of Krishna, means being in bhakti. So if you have any questions and comments, this is the end of the chapter. We can take it now. I hope you are able to follow me.
हाँ प्रभु जी.
Any questions, Prabhu? Mataji? Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments?
No questions प्रभु जी.
Okay. Okay, we'll end it here. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.